Hello, today I'll discuss global shifts. Now it's China's turn to impose a tech blockade on the US. Also, the US is raising tariffs on Chinese graphite to 160%. This isn't targeting China, it's aimed at Tesla. Trump is reversing Biden's energy policy, supporting traditional energy, so new energy industries suffer. Musk is caught in the crossfire, at odds with Trump. His EV business is taking a serious hit. The U.S. has made a move, targeting graphite. On July 17, the U.S. Department of Commerce decided to impose a 93.5% anti-dumping tariff on key battery material graphite imported from China. The reason given is that this material receives unfair subsidies. This move has had a significant impact on many electric vehicle manufacturers. According to Bloomberg, Tesla and its main battery supplier, Japan's Panasonic, along with other companies, said they had tried to stop this ruling. They argued that the domestic graphite industry in the US cannot meet demand in terms of quality or capacity, so there is still a need to rely on imports from China. The matter began last December when the Alliance of American Active Anode Material Producers applied to US federal agencies, requesting an investigation whether Chinese graphite producers violated anti-dumping laws. This alliance seeks to impose punitive tariffs of up to 920% on Chinese graphite. In May, the U.S. Department of Commerce's International Trade Administration published a preliminary ruling on countervailing duty investigations into active anode materials from China, including graphite, tin, and other materials, claiming Chinese companies benefited from subsidies. Two Chinese companies had subsidy rates exceeding 700%. While others had a 6.6% rate. American graphite producers, among petitioners, requested an investigation. They sought an inquiry into whether large Chinese government subsidies artificially lowered prices, making it harder for American graphite producers to compete. This ruling by the U.S. Department of Commerce paves the way for the imposition of countervailing duties in the future. The latest decision by the U.S. Department of Commerce will affect imported products worth $310 million in 2023. Anti-dumping duties apply to anode-grade graphite materials with 90% carbon, synthetic, natural, or a mix. According to calculations by the American Alliance for Active Anode Material Producers, with new tariffs added to existing rates, tariffs will reach 160%. For China, this move by the United States is pure protectionism and should be strongly opposed. However, China's graphite exports to the U.S. are only $300 million a year, a small share of China's overall exports, but significantly impact American EV manufacturers. They might have to import high-quality Chinese graphite even if it means paying hefty tariffs. Graphite is a key raw material for EVs. Almost all of the refined graphite needed by Tesla, other companies, and their suppliers to produce batteries is supplied by China. Azam, head of the battery division at consulting firm GRU Group, said that this tariff will hit battery manufacturers hard. He said that a 160% tariff would add about $7 per kilowatt-hour to the cost of a typical electric vehicle battery cell, which would basically wipe out 1 to 2 full quarters of profit for Korean battery manufacturers. Bloomberg reported that companies like Tesla and its main battery supplier, Japan's Panasonic, have strongly opposed this new tariff. They said the reason they rely on Chinese graphite imports is because the domestic industry in the U.S. is not yet developed enough to meet automakers' requirements for graphite quality, standards, and quantity. China produces the majority of the world's graphite. 59% of the natural graphite and 68% of the synthetic graphite used in the U.S. are imported from China. The U.S. imported 180,000 tons of graphite products last year, with about 67% coming from China. The International Energy Agency stated in its May report that in the medium term graphite will remain the most used anode material for lithium-ion batteries. Tin is not expected to start taking market share from graphite until 2030. Panasonic says graphite accounts for less than 8% of battery costs, but since battery is most expensive component of an electric vehicle, if cost of graphite doubles, price of battery could increase by $1,000 or more. Ultimately, this cost would have to be absorbed by car manufacturers or passed on to consumers through higher prices. After U.S. Department of Commerce announced ruling, Tesla's stock price immediately dropped. Meanwhile, stock price of Westwater Resources, American mineral resources company building a graphite plant in Alabama, soared by 55%. Westwater Resources was pleased with this decision. Their chief commercial officer, Jacobs, said this tariff ruling provides policy certainty and market signals needed to accelerate domestic graphite production in the United States. Jacobs said their company has already reached agreements with Stellantis and SK On. The first phase of their plant will begin production next year, with a capacity of 12,500 tons. By 2028, capacity is expected to expand to 50,000 tons. However, the United States imports 120,000 tons of graphite from China, so the increased capacity from Westwater's new plant is still far from meeting America's demand. The New York Times reported that this week, Panasonic's new factory in DeSoto, Kansas, has started manufacturing battery cells. This factory is Panasonic's second electric vehicle battery plant in Kansas, and it's expected to create more than 4,000 new jobs. Meanwhile, South Korea's LG is producing batteries in places like Tennessee in the United States. All these companies are investing in battery manufacturing in the U.S. with support from federal government funding. But Republicans have been trying to eliminate this kind of financial support. Now, with a significant tariff hike on imported Chinese graphite, it's a double blow for these battery manufacturers setting up factories in the U.S. According to reports, although the U.S. Department of Commerce's decision is only a preliminary ruling, companies still have to pay the tariffs immediately. Final ruling announced before December 5th. To sum up, U.S. imposes tariffs on Chinese graphite. China may retaliate with tariffs on American products. Graphite isn't a major trade item, so its impact on China is limited. Moreover, even if American companies have to pay higher tariffs, they may still need to keep importing Chinese graphite, so the impact on the relevant Chinese companies is manageable. Second, whether or not these tariffs are imposed ultimately depends on Trump's whim. With recent interactions Malaysia and Trump, Secretary Rodney kicked Tesla. Tariff hike, EV cost $1,000 more, hurting Tesla with sales declining. Third, by developing industries through protectionism, everything produced in the U.S. ends up being much more expensive than in other countries. So what competitive edge do American companies really have? On another note, American politicians still think China wants to copy U.S. technology, but the reality might be the opposite. Recently, China's Ministry of Commerce and Ministry of Science and Technology updated the list of technologies banned or restricted from export, drawing much attention from U.S. media. According to a CNN report on July 17, restrictions target upstream process technologies for electric vehicle battery production. China's goal with this move is to solidify its dominance in the battery sector and raise the bar for foreign companies accessing China's technology. According to the list of technologies banned or restricted from export released by China's Ministry of Commerce on July 15, this adjustment removes 3 items, adds 1 new, and modifies 1. The newly added item is a restricted export category, covering technology for preparing battery cathode materials, including producing lithium iron phosphate. The modified item is a restricted export entry, involving non-ferrous metal metallurgy technology, including nickel pyroxene and neodymium lithium carbonate technology, and changes to technical control points for extracting metallic gallium. Lithium iron phosphate and lithium manganese iron phosphate are intermediate products used in battery cathode materials. Generally, the battery cathode determines its energy density and lifespan. China's dominant position in global EV and battery industries relies on control over cathode material technology. According to CNN, lithium iron phosphate batteries have become increasingly common in electric vehicles over the past 5 years due to their lower cost and higher safety. China holds a dominant position in the global production of lithium iron phosphate batteries and lithium processing. Last year, China accounted for 94% of the world's lithium iron phosphate battery production capacity, which is essentially a complete monopoly, and it also processed 70% of the world's refined lithium output. Edmondson, vice president of research at R&D firm IDTechX, said that means even lithium iron phosphate batteries produced outside of China can only have their cathode precursors made by Chinese companies. According to SNE research data from Korea, in 2024, Chinese companies will account for at least 67% of the global EV battery market. By controlling production technology for lithium iron phosphate battery cathodes, China effectively controls this battery type's core technology. The Wall Street Journal reports that from lithium processing to battery manufacturing, China has already taken a dominant position in the EV battery supply chain. The latest announced catalog adjustments are further measures China is taking on this foundation. The Wall Street Journal believes that at present, China hopes to raise the threshold for foreign companies to access China's leading technologies, ensuring that other countries cannot easily catch up with China. It can be summed up like this. First, foreign companies tried to prevent China from stealing their technology, but now the tables have turned. China wants to guard against other countries stealing its core lithium iron phosphate battery technology. Second, this approach restricts Chinese battery companies from building factories in the Gulf region, preventing the outflow of core technology. Third, the geopolitical and technological decoupling led by the United States is affecting the US itself. Now, from raw materials to process intellectual property, even if the US forces companies to build battery factories in America, they still can't get China's core technology.